Hello YouTube, I'm Toby, and today I thought I'd be playing around with an old i3 I had lying around. Now before we get too deep into this video, I just wanted you to see the building process of this system. The components in the system are an old i3 2100 dual-core CPU clock that I believe it's 3.1 gigahertz. We are running 4 gigs of DDR3 RAM. The motherboard is just simply an old ThinkSensor motherboard I had lying around, and the graphics card is an old AMD EAH5570. I'm pretty much just willing to see what this system can do. Now, for testing this system, I'm going to be using Cinebench R15, and I'm going to play a variety of Counter-Strike games, and I also thought we'd run the Resident Evil 6 benchmarking test. So, without further ado, let's get on to the benchmarking. Now, just for good measure, I decided to run core temp 1.7 in the background. This will allow me to monitor the temperatures during the testing period. Alright, so we've started running Cinebench. Cinebench completed, and we got a score of 264, which is actually way worse than I had anticipated, but okay, I can live with that. We're currently running the integrated Counter-Strike Source graphics test. All settings are set to high, but anti-aliasing is set to off. It seems to be running fairly well, so I'm expecting a decent FPS count. And the results are in. We got 171.08 frames per second, which is, I'd say, fairly decent. Let's see what the Half-Life 2 Lost Coast designated graphics test tells us. Just like in the Counter-Strike Source graphics test, the settings in Half-Life 2 Lost Coast graphics test is set to high, and once again I've taken, I set anti-aliasing to off. 140 frames per second. That's quite alright for this system actually. Let's try and play some Global Offensive. Alright, so seems to play fairly well in Global Offensive. We are running on high settings, however I did turn the anti-aliasing off again. So if you can live without anti-aliasing, this is actually a pretty decent machine. Let's try the Resident Evil 6 benchmarking test. Now in this test I've set all the settings to low, and anti-aliasing is also off. We're actually having a good start. We're around 26 frames per second right now, so it's actually doing, well, almost 30 frames per second. It's actually doing a little bit better than I had anticipated. According to the benchmarking tool, the game works but may considerably slow down. I wouldn't personally play this game on this system, but who knows, maybe you want to. According to core temp 1.7, our maximum temperature during the entire benchmarking scene was 48 degrees Celsius, which is actually pretty good. It's not a system that's running extremely hot, so that's definitely cool. I usually don't mind my systems making a few noises, but this is ridiculous. That CPU fan in there is way too loud for my taste. Well, that was my benchmarking of the i3 2100 and the EAH5570. Now this system does seem to fare well in esports titles. Might actually be able to do some heavier gaming. As we saw in the Resident Evil benchmarking test, it did say that it would work, but it may slow down, and I'm pretty sure it's going to slow way down if you try and play something like Resident Evil 6 on this system. As a daily driver, it also works fine. It plays YouTube, reads mails, browsing, all those things it does fairly decently, so no issues there. Now, if you're planning on building a system like this just to play esports titles, do not get the stock cooler that's in this system, because it is loud. I mean, that was crazy. I mean, I could feel it in my ears when I shut it down. It was just quiet. Now, if you just want some cheap components for an esports computer, I think these parts are actually a fairly good buy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching.